For our next inquiry activity, we're going to take a look at a radical abolitionist, John Brown. You should remember John Brown from his role in the 1856 Bleeding Kansas conflict, in which he and his sons fought against pro-slavery mobs in the Kansas Territory. The compelling question we're going to be investigating over the next few days is, why was John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry an important turning point in American history? Let's begin by building some background knowledge of John Brown. If you haven't done so already, please open your notes workbook to page 16. 3 years after taking up arms against the expansion of slavery in the Kansas Territory, John Brown planned an even more radical act: seize a federal arsenal, pass the arms to enslave people, and launch an insurrection against slaveholders. Brown fervently believed that the only way to end slavery was through violence. You're probably asking yourself, what's a federal arsenal? The United States Armory at Harper's Ferry was a massive complex that manufactured weapons for the U.S. Army. At the time of Brown's raid in 1859, it was reported that the arsenal stocked more than 100,000 muskets and rifles. That would have been more than enough arms to bring a violent and bloody end to slavery. Late in the evening of October 18th, 1859, John Brown and his devoted followers seized control of the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry. It didn't take long for word to get out of the break-in at the arsenal. Brown and his followers were quickly surrounded by over 100 soldiers, U.S. Marines, and militiamen. Over a period of 36 hours, those U.S. troops fought against Brown's men in an attempt to retake control of the arsenal and to put down the potentially revolutionary insurrection. Brown was captured, tried, and ultimately sentenced to death. As he stood atop the platform of the gallows waiting to be hung, Brown spoke his final words. I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away but with blood. I had, as I now think, vainly flattered myself that without very much bloodshed it might be done. Brown's raid and eventual hanging were met with different responses. In the North, John Brown became a hero for the abolitionist movement. His violent means to end slavery were not only accepted and justified, but were also glorified. Poet Henry David Thoreau described John Brown as a martyr for the abolitionist cause. He is not old Brown any longer, he is an angel of light. Brown's commitment to end slavery strengthened the abolitionist movement in the North. Southerners, though, had a different response. They saw Brown as a treasonist who initiated an insurrection against his own government. Keep in mind that at the time of his raid, Lincoln had not yet been elected president, nor had any of the Southern states seceded in formation of the Confederate States of America. Brown's raid convinced many Southerners that the North had a greater plot to murder slaveholders across the South. Georgia Senator Robert Toombs, who would later become the Confederacy's Secretary of State, declared, "Defend yourselves. The enemy is at your door." Let's jump back into our inquiry. If you haven't done so yet, please open the inquiry organizer on Google Classroom. On the first page, let's consider 3 supporting questions. Please type these questions into your analysis organizer. Question 1. What was the sequence of events during John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry? In other words, what happened? Our second supporting question, what was the outcome of the raid? And finally, how did Americans view the raid? Today, your task with the time remaining is to begin to work on your own through the first few documents. Each document begins with context or background information that should help guide your analysis. Be sure to annotate the documents and respond to the questions in your Google Doc. The documents in our John Brown inquiry activity begin on page 18. Remember a compelling question. Why was John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry an important turning point in American history?